The email arrived at 3:15 a.m. Mark Ellison didn't see it until morning. At 52, Mark had built a reputation on precision. As chief financial officer of a mid-sized biotech firm, his days revolved around compliance, audits, and signatures that carried weight, especially signatures. He opened the email while standing in his kitchen, coffee still brewing, no greeting, no sender name, just a scanned document attached. And one sentence in the body: "You approved the transfer." 3 days later, he died. Mark felt an immediate tightening in his chest. He downloaded the attachment. It was a financial authorization form. Dated 8 years ago, his signature sat at the bottom. He remembered the quarter well. The company had been struggling. Investors were impatient. A research division was burning through cash without producing results. The transfer in question redirected funding away from an internal safety trial toward a faster product launch. He had justified it at the time. The safety trial had shown minor complications, nothing statistically catastrophic. The launch, however, promised survival for the entire company. He told himself it was strategic allocation. Now the email suggested something else. He scrolled further down the attachment. A name was highlighted: Ethan Cole. Mark exhaled slowly. The name was faintly familiar. Phase 2 participant. Age 34. No prior cardiac history. Adverse reaction reported 3 days after dosage. Cardiac arrest. The internal review had labeled it inconclusive. No direct causation established. Mark remembered the legal had recommended careful wording. Correlation is not causation, they repeated. And technically, they were correct, but technically correct does not always mean ethically clean. Mark reread the email. You approved the transfer. 3 days later, he died. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it ring. Then a text arrived. You don't remember me, but I remember you. Mark sat down at the kitchen table. He had signed hundreds of documents that year. But he remembered Ethan now. Not because of the trial, because Ethan's sister had shown up at the company office months later. She had asked to speak with someone in leadership. Security escorted her out before she reached the executive floor. Mark had watched it on the lobby monitor. He told himself it was protocol. He never went downstairs. His phone buzzed again. You cut the safety budget. You sped up approval. My brother trusted your company. Mark typed back before thinking. Who is this? The response was immediate. Anna Cole. There it was. Not anonymous. Not vague. Specific. Mark stared at his own reflection in the dark screen of his laptop. 8 years ago, he had framed the funding shift as necessary. Temporary. Within regulatory bounds. The drug had eventually launched. It was profitable. It helped thousands. But Ethan Cole had not lived long enough to see that outcome. Another message appeared. Meet me, or I take this public. Mark felt something colder than fear. Exposure was one risk, but confrontation was another. He had built his career on managing numbers. He had never been asked to account for a life. He looked again at the document. His signature was clean, confident, certain. He remembered believing that no single transfer determined a death. But now, staring at the date alignment, he felt the possibility that influence can be subtle and still devastating. The coffee machine beeped behind him. Normal morning sounds. Ordinary light through the window. Yet something fundamental had shifted. The email was not accusing him of murder. It was accusing him of calculation. And calculations, unlike accidents, are intentional. Mark picked up his phone. Where? He typed. The reply came seconds later. You owe me a conversation. They met in a quiet cafe 2 blocks from Mark's office. Neutral ground. Public enough to avoid a scene. Private enough to talk. Anna Cole was already seated when he arrived. Early 30s. Composed. No visible anger. That unsettled him more than if she had been shouting. Mark approached slowly. "Anna," he said. She didn't stand. "Mr. Ellison," he sat across from her, no handshake. Up close he noticed she had Ethan's eyes, same sharp focus, same intensity he vaguely remembered from the participant profile photo. "You said you wanted a conversation," Mark began. "I wanted acknowledgement," she corrected. She slid a thin folder across the table. He didn't open it immediately. "You approved a budget reallocation," she said. 3 days before my brother's dosage." "That reallocation did not alter the formulation," Mark replied carefully. "Nor did it remove safety oversight, it reduced monitoring frequency," she said. Mark's jaw tightened slightly. Technically, it had shifted monitoring from in-house cardiology staff to outsourced evaluation with longer reporting windows. The data collection still existed. It was simply less immediate. A cost efficiency measure. He opened the folder. Printed emails. Internal memos. One subject line caught his attention. Adjusting Phase 2 oversight timeline. He remembered that thread. Operations had suggested tighter observation after minor irregularities in 2 patients. Nothing fatal. Nothing alarming. But tightening observation meant delaying launch. Delays meant investor panic. His response had been brief. Maintain current schedule. Reassess post-rollout. Anna watched him read. "He complained about chest pressure 2 days before he died," she said quietly. The follow-up check was scheduled for the following week. Mark felt a flicker of recognition. There had been a note in the adverse event summary. Mild discomfort. Non-urgent classification. He had never read beyond the executive abstract. "I didn't see individual reports," he said. "But you shaped the system that decided how fast they were reviewed," Anna replied. The statement landed without aggression. Just clarity. Mark looked up at her. "What do you want?" he asked. "Truth," she said. "Not legal truth, not regulatory language, personal truth." He leaned back slightly. "You believe I chose profit over safety. I believe you chose speed," she said, "and speed changes outcomes." The calf noise continued around them. Cups clinking, low conversation, ordinary life. Anna opened her bag and removed something else. A photo. Ethan standing outdoors, smiling, healthy. "He trusted the trial," she said. "He said if anything felt wrong, they'd catch it." Mark looked at the image. He had told investors something similar once. "Our monitoring protocols exceed industry standards." At the time, that statement had been true. After the budget adjustment, they still met standards. But they no longer exceeded them. There was a difference. "Did the drug kill him?" Mark asked quietly. Anna held his gaze. The autopsy said undetermined interaction. "No definitive causation," he exhaled. "But," he pressed, "but if he had been monitored daily instead of weekly, someone might have caught the arrhythmia earlier," she said. "Might have, not certainty, probability. Risk distribution, the language of his career." "You're asking me to admit I increased risk," he said. "I'm asking you to admit you accepted it," she replied. The distinction cut deeper. Mark closed the folder. "For 8 years," he said slowly, "I believed we followed the rules." "Rules are minimums," Anna said. "My brother trusted you above minimum." Silence settled between them. Mark realized something uncomfortable. He had prepared defenses on the walk over. Legal frameworks, regulatory compliance, statistical inevitability. Anna was not arguing law, she was arguing conscience. "You said you'd take this public," he said. "I will," she replied calmly. "But not for money." "Then why?" So the next CFO hesitates. The sentence lingered. Not revenge. Deterrence. Mark looked down at his hands. He had always viewed his signature as structural approval. Now he was being asked to see it as personal impact. "You want an apology," he said. No, Anna answered. I want responsibility. There was a difference, and Mark understood it. Responsibility did not require proven causation. It required acknowledging influence. He looked at the folder one more time. The budget shift had saved the company, protected hundreds of employees, funded research that later saved lives, but it had also reduced vigilance during a critical window. Both could be true. Anna stood slowly. I'm giving you a week, she said, to decide whether you tell this story yourself, and if I don't, he asked. She met his eyes evenly. Then I will. She left the calf without looking back. Mark remained seated. For the first time in his career, he felt the weight of a signature not as ink, but as consequence. Mark did not sleep that night. He sat in his home office with the folder open in front of him, reading the same emails over and over, not searching for legal escape, searching for intention. 8 years ago, the company had been close to collapse. Investors were threatening withdrawal. Payroll was tight. Research divisions were competing for limited capital. He remembered the board meeting clearly. If we delay launch again, we lose confidence, the CEO had said. And if we don't tighten oversight? Someone asked. Mark had answered that question. We remain compliant. We adjust monitoring frequency. We manage risk. He had believed that was responsible leadership. Now he understood something he hadn't considered at the time. Managing risk at scale means redistributing it. Someone always carries more of it. The week Anna gave him moved quickly. Legal counsel advised silence. There is no proven causation, the company attorney said. Opening this publicly invites liability. The CEO was firmer. We followed regulation. Do not imply otherwise. They weren't wrong. But they weren't answering the question Anna asked. On the 6th day, Mark requested a board meeting. Closed session, no press, no external observers. He presented the documents calmly. The funding shift, the oversight adjustment, the timing of Ethan Cole's symptoms. There is no direct proof the monitoring change caused his death, one board member said. I know, Mark replied. Then what is this about? Another asked. Mark paused. For years, I believed compliance equaled responsibility, he said. It doesn't. It equals defensibility. Silence filled the room. He continued. I approved a shift that reduced real-time oversight during a critical trial phase. I did it to protect this company. That decision increased exposure for participants. Even if statistically small, it was real. You're suggesting negligence? The CEO asked sharply. I'm suggesting prioritization, Mark answered, and acknowledging its cost. The board did not applaud. They did not agree unanimously, but they listened. 2 days later, Mark requested a press briefing. Legal strongly advised against personal statements. He insisted. Anna stood in the back of the room when he began speaking. He did not mention Ethan by name at first. He spoke about structural incentive, about speed versus scrutiny, about how regulatory minimums can slowly become moral ceilings. Then he said it clearly. 8 years ago, I approved a budget reallocation that reduced monitoring intensity in a clinical trial. The company remained compliant. But in hindsight, compliance was not enough. The room shifted. Cameras adjusted. He continued. One participant died shortly after reporting symptoms that, under stricter oversight, might have triggered faster intervention. There is no confirmed causation. But I accept responsibility for the environment that allowed that risk. It was not an admission of direct fault. It was an admission of influence. Afterward, reporters asked about lawsuits. He answered calmly. This is not about litigation. It is about learning. The board announced an independent review and a restructuring of oversight protocols. Investors reacted cautiously, stock dipped, but not catastrophically. That evening, Mark stepped outside the building. Anna was waiting. "You did it," she said. "I told the truth," he replied. She studied his face. "You didn't say you killed him." "Because I didn't," he said quietly. "But I said I shaped the conditions." Anna nodded once. "My brother volunteered because he believed in medical progress," she said. "He just didn't know progress sometimes moves faster than safety." Mark absorbed that. "I can't change what happened," he said. "No," she replied. "But you changed what happens next." For the first time since the email arrived, Mark felt something that wasn't fear, not relief, but alignment. A week later, he submitted his resignation. Not forced. Chosen. The company would move forward. So would he. But he would never sign another authorization without hearing Anna's voice in his head. You accepted the risk. Some decisions are legal. Some are profitable. And some live quietly for years before asking to be accounted for. Mark finally understood the difference.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos.